Hello and welcome to PocketGamer.biz's weekly news digest. This is for the week ending the 6th of February 2015. So I guess kind of starting this week where we ended last week, the big kind of interesting kind of event that was happening for some people in the world at least was the Super Bowl, which obviously happened last Sunday. The interesting thing for the mobile games industry was we knew some people were going to be advertising around the Super Bowl in the Super Bowl ad breaks. And there were a few that we didn't know. So in the end, there were three mobile games companies advertising in the Super Bowl. There was Supercell, who we knew was going to do a big spread. It's kind of estimated they paid about $9 million for their kind of advert, which is very funny. It was Liam Neeson taking the role of kind of a wanted role where someone had attacked his base in Clash of Clans, and he was going to get his revenge on them. And the whole kind of theme, the meme I suppose spread that Angry Nielsen 52 was this thing, that was his supposedly in-game name, and they did a very funny advert based on that. And obviously Supercell have the money to spend. We also knew that I guess kind of more of an upstart kind of company, Ucall, American developer, they have a game called Heroes Charge. They just got into kind of TV advertising at the end of last year. They were going to spend kind of big as well. I mean, not quite as big as Supercell, but relatively big for their size to advertise their game. And then I guess we could have guessed, but we didn't know at that time. But Machine Zone were going to advertise with Game of War, and they've got they've been doing kind of big campaigns around that anyway. So all three of those did the kind of the traditional in between the Super Bowl kind of ad break. Kind of advertising, probably about $15 million kind of all in for that advertising. So people have been now trying to kind of estimate, which was the funniest advert, probably if people think Supercell, and which advert actually had any impact. That is actually quite hard to tell, because for Clash of Clans and Game of War, pretty much they're very heavily downloaded anyway, so it's kind of harder to tell the impact on them. Easier to tell for Heroes Charge, which isn't particularly getting a lot of downloads at the moment, and kind of had a massive spike, certainly on iOS, which iPhone, the Apple App Store tends to show kind of changes in downloads much quicker than Google Play. So we saw that. Obviously, the thing that really matters for these companies, you assume at the end of the day, will be how they make more revenue from the users they get, or does in fact running that advert kind of encourage users who already have the game to go back and play it. Much harder to tell on that whether it happens, but it's definitely kind of part of a broader thing we're calling extreme user acquisition, extreme UA, and just companies spending a lot more money in a lot more kind of high profile kind of campaigns to try and get this kind of these kind of audiences that they maybe not be getting through Facebook advertising or other performance advertising. So it's kind of a shift we're seeing throughout the industry from performance advertising to kind of more like brand advertising, which is tends to be what consumer kind of companies do anyway. So that was kind of one part of the advertising mix this week. Another couple of kind of smaller things. There was an interesting kind of outcome from Gameloft's financials. They announced them actually last week. But Gameloft have a kind of interesting company, French company, and they've taken a decision, or they took a decision a couple of years ago to stop all advertising in their games. Even though they kind of release a lot of games, none of them are massively. They don't have like a Clash of Clans. They don't have one kind of game that just generates a lot of money. They have a lot of games that generate a bit of money. Their financials. I mean, they're a big company. They're getting on for this kind of $275 million turnover a year, but they're running to flat at the moment. And something that looks like they're going to try and do now is like change their decision on in-game advertising, which they pulled a couple of years ago now, because you can make so much more money from especially video advertising. We assume they're going to try and work with brands rather than other games, because this whole problem is if you have other people advertising in your game, then effectively you're letting your rivals take away your audience, or potentially that's seen as kind of one of the problems. So expect kind of Gameloft to probably try and get brand advertising, i.e. that's not other game people advertising in its games, but they're very serious about it. They put this kind of statement in their earnings, and they've actually built up an internal digital agency team to kind of manage that. So they're not going with an outside agency. They're going to kind of learn the expertise in house, which is obviously much more expensive because you've got to staff up the team. But I guess we'll see in future earnings from Gameloft whether that's having any impact. Talking a brief kind of lateral movement when it comes to videos. A quick kind of shout out to our colleagues over at the App Spy Pocket Gamer channel on Twitch. So Twitch is obviously, we all know, is a big streaming channel mainly for PC games, but there's mobile games are growing on there. And the guys over at App Spy, which is Pocket Gamer's video channel, they've been running their channel there. They're running it every day of the week at 5 p.m. UK time, and they've just broken, or quite significantly broken, the 3 million views milestone. I assume that's a milestone. Anything with a million on is a milestone in our book anyway. So big shout out to those guys, and doing a really good job. And I guess it kind of shows how important video is, not just for advertising but for just general kind of discovery and general journalistic approaches, which I guess is why we're doing this video here as well. So what else is going on? I guess the other kind of big news of the week, or the interesting news of the week, kind of comes out of the financial figure stuff as well. So we're going through the financial kind of quarters where most of the American companies have announced, really. I think Zynga to come next week. We're starting to have the Japanese companies and the Korean companies starting to announce their figures as well. But I guess the interesting one, at least for me, because I've been following them for a long period of time, is Glue Mobile. So Glue Mobile have been kind of almost, I mean, a basket case is putting it a bit kind of too meanly, I suppose, but it's certainly not made a profit for many years. It used to be quite a big Java. Back in the days of Java, it was a big publisher doing a lot of kind of movie licenses, kind of license deal stuff. That's kind of how you had to work on Java. They did a big pivot when iPhone came along to move to free-to-play games, smartphone games, and kind of ditched all the old feature phone stuff. And it's been really hard for them. Their sales have fallen. And due to their sales falling, their profits have kind of collapsed. Or in fact, they've been making losses, as I say, for about 3 years. They were kind of working their way back. They had a big focus on 3D action games, so kind of more for, I guess, kind of young males. That was its kind of target audience. And then lo and behold, it did a game with Kim Kardashian that's kind of blown the socks off everyone, and obviously made the CEO very very happy. So they announced their full year earnings figures. So it's the full year. It wasn't a full year of Kim Kardashian Hollywood, but it was the first year where they had that game out there, and that game is by far and away their biggest revenue generators. I think the top month it was doing like $30 million, $40 million a month. So kind of good figures from Glue, and I guess the kind of other interesting news off the back of the Kim Kardashian game doing so well for them is they announced a 5-year deal with Katy Perry, which I guess brings us back to the Super Bowl, because obviously Katy Perry did the halftime performance in the Super Bowl. So she's very much the kind of star celebrity of the moment. We don't really know what the game's going to be about. It won't be out till the end of 2015. But having seen the Kim Kardashian game, we can kind of imagine it's going to be a game based around being kind of Katy Perry, and probably there'll be some kind of I'm an international superstar doing gigs, and probably a bit of fashion stuff in there as well. Just that celebrity kind of experience simulation, I suppose. So it's kind of difficult to kind of divide the two. So Glue's share price shot up. It went up 30% in a day, which is actually for Glue not that unsurprising. So Glue's share price has gone up and down over the last year or so. It's currently it was about $4 before the earnings came out. The earnings were very good, so that would have increased its share price anyway, and then the earnings were then kind of compounded, I suppose, by this Katy Perry deal. So the value of the two things together has really shot up its share price. So it went up from under $4 to now it's about over $5. Did that in about a day. But back in the summer of last year, when people suddenly realised how profitable the Kim Kardashian game was going to be for the company, its shares actually went up to $7. But then over a period of a couple of months, they kind of fell back down again to kind of around $4. So it's obviously very difficult with the share price is not an exact science by any means, and it's more kind of a sense of people's perceptions on how a company is doing. But I guess we would say for Glue, it seems like it's finally kind of come out of the woods, because now it has much stronger financials than it had last summer, when it had this kind of peak and fall away in its share price. Now it has the Kim Kardashian game, which is clearly going to be doing good revenue for years to come. It has actually another game, it has a Deer Hunter game, which actually does pretty well. It does $10 million a quarter pretty much off that, and it obviously has its core kind of action games for guys, which is still kind of pumping out. So kind of I guess that's a positive story. It's been a long time for people who have been shareholders of Glue, and it's been a long time for people who have been working in Glue, and I guess so congratulations to them. And I guess it proves that when you do have a big hit, I mean, I guess this is the thing that everyone running free-to-play games is kind of hoping for. When you do have a big hit, it is a kind of a winner-takes-all market. When you have a hit, it just is going to generate a lot of money for a lot of years to come, and that's kind of what everyone's working towards. So I guess we'll see next week as more financial figures come out, whether anyone else has got something boiling on the pot that's going to explode. We'll see you next week.